Hi, this is Steve Wagner, and this is a video on managing employee retention. If we want to improve employee retention in an organization, we have to make it a priority, and it has to be a priority for upper management. And we can do that in a number of different ways. We can benchmark the industry that we're in and look at that turnover rate compared to the business's turnover rates and see whether it's favorable or unfavorable. That may be something that can move the needle. And by having a concrete measure of how well the company is performing relative to peers, that is something that can move upper management. Another thing we have to use to get the support of upper management is explain the cost of turnover in detail. Emphasize that turnover costs extend beyond just rehiring expenses. They should include lost productivity, training costs, impacts on team morale, and potential damage to customer relationships when seasoned employees leave. When we can provide specific numbers or estimates, we can show how these costs add up. By framing employee retention as a strategic investment, upper management can better understand that prioritizing retention efforts can ultimately save money, improve stability in the organization, and strengthen customer relationships over time. If we want to be effective at retaining our employees, we need to ensure that their pay and benefits and working conditions are competitive within our industry. When employees see better opportunities for pay or benefits or a better working environment elsewhere, they're more likely to move on. This shift in mindset has led many to refer to a trend we're observing to the great upgrade. Maybe you heard of the great resignation. Again, it wasn't people quitting their jobs, it was people trying to upgrade their jobs. And while that trend is not as pronounced as it was, the old ideas of remaining loyal to one organization throughout your whole career, it's not endorsed by as many people in the contemporary working environment. So as organizations, we need to try and pay attention to what our industry standards are, because this is a point of competition. Just like we compete for customers or we compete for the best contracts with our suppliers, we also are in a competition for the best talent. And we have to enhance employee satisfaction and avoid the costly cycle of employee turnover. A great way to measure and manage retention of employees is through engagement and attitude surveys. Businesses can use surveys to predict and monitor factors that predict voluntary turnover. One of the strongest indicators of turnover is an employee's expressed intention to exit an organization, and we can ask that in our surveys. Annual surveys allow businesses to also identify key factors that contribute to employee dissatisfaction. These can show the managers of the organization areas to change and to enhance in order to improve satisfaction of workers. Another type of survey is a pulse survey. It's a short, more frequent survey than an annual survey, and it provides timely insights about employees' sentiments and feelings. Through pulse surveys, we can engage our employees more continuously because they're not a burden to complete. By doing this, businesses can proactively address retention issues and improve the employee experience before a negative cycle of turnover begins. Another great tool we can use in HR to manage retention is exit interviews. This type of interview provides insights into why employees are leaving the organization. If we want to make exit interviews more effective, we should use higher level managers to conduct these interviews. This approach encourages departing employees to be more open about their responses because they're not talking to their direct supervisor. For some key positions in the organization, we should really prioritize exit interviews and make them mandatory whenever possible. We should also think about the timing of exit interviews. We should conduct the interview midway between the notice being given and the actual departure date. This timing allows for a more reflective conversation while the employee is still engaged. We also should use the data from our exit interviews and analyze it and act on it to improve our policies and our processes and our work culture. Another way we can enhance employee retention is through our hiring practices and by hiring for fit. We should get employees that are aligned with our company culture and who understand the role expectations that they will have when they're part of the organization. If we focus on skills and we focus on the values, we can not only hire employees who are competent to do the job, but also have the personality and values that align with the organization's cultures and goals. Now, again, we have to be careful and make sure that we are being inclusive and we are bringing in a diverse set of candidates. In order to do this well, we should think about fit along different segments and make sure those avenues to enter the organization are inclusive and result in selecting candidates that are likely to thrive in the organization and stay in the long term. When we hire for fit, it leads to better retention and better performance. Because when we have employees that align with the organization, they're more engaged, they're more productive, and they're more committed to their roles. Another tactic for improving retention is by having effective onboarding of employees. When employees are onboarded into an organization in a way that it teaches them about the company's culture, in a way that welcomes them, that connects them to other workers, it sets them off to a good start. And it allows us to utilize our workers in a more efficient manner. As employees become more embedded in their social context within the culture of the organization, and they're more ready to engage in executing the role that they've been hired for. There are a number of other ways that we can manage employee retention. And if we focus on what predicts employee turnover, we can help to manage it. And one of the best predictors is job satisfaction. And through the surveys that we do, we can get a better understanding of how content our employees are with their work setting and their supervision and pay and advancement opportunities. And by understanding this, we can make adjustments that would lead to greater satisfaction and lower turnover. When employees feel valued, they see opportunities for growth and they have more reason to stay where they are. Another type of thing that we measure in surveys more and more is work engagement. This is the emotional connection that employees have with their work. When we see employees that are engaged and invested in what they do, they bring their best selves to work. So it's not just a matter of are you satisfied, but are you passionate about your work? And people who are passionate about their work are much more likely to stay in the organization where they are. And so it's increasingly likely that looking at work engagement is a way to take an employee survey even further than we used to with just job satisfaction. We also have to consider management practices that lead to retention. And one is flexibility. As we can provide flexibility such as remote work option, flexible work hours, work-life balance factors, this can significantly decrease turnover. Now, this has become a hot button issue since the pandemic and the return to work after the pandemic. And still, it depends sometimes by the organization and the industry that it's in and maybe the type of work. Other times it's about the culture of the organization and its values and the decisions of the leaders. So, but we have to consider what our employees' values are and try and accommodate their needs. More and more employees value a balanced life, and organizations have to recognize that. Another management approach is to enhance trust-based relationships. When we can build trust between managers and employees, it's a crucial way of curbing turnover. When employees trust their managers and feel supported, they're more likely to return that loyalty to the organization and remain in it longer. Now, in some industries and some businesses, turnover is unavoidable. We can't perfectly manage retention. Organizations have to recognize that some turnover is unavoidable. And the more we can prepare for it, the more likely we're going to avoid disruptions in our operations and also limit any detrimental effects on employee morale. Industries that are stuck with a high turnover rate can adapt to this through a number of measures, including standardizing and simplifying jobs. By making roles easier to learn and perform, it makes it more likely that new hires will quickly adapt and contribute and minimize any productivity losses. Another approach in high turnover industries is to use very common technology. This way, it's easier for employees to transition between roles and for new hires to onboard faster. We should also strive for consistency across the organization. The more we can maintain uniform processes and policies, the more we can create a stable, predictable work environment. And this is particularly important in high turnover industries. We should also focus on making knowledge accessible to our employees. By ensuring that important information and procedures are documented and easily accessible, we allow remaining employees to cover for those when there is turnover and minimize disruptions. By taking these steps of making knowledge accessible and documenting work, we can handle turnover more positively and maintain productivity and stability and help to allow those remaining employees to cope with a high level of turnover.